Hey everyone, my name is Joel from Dissecting DIY, and today we're going to go over something I wasn't planning on doing today, and that is leaks in a Samsung front load washer. I've had 2 leaks in this so far. I believe I've identified the culprit, but I just wanted to go over with you because there isn't really a lot out there on where and how to identify leaks. So, that being said, let's go over the most common, and then we'll go to areas where they're going to be a little tricky. So the most common areas of leak are from, first of all, the front here. This is a filter, and you just pop this open. There's a drain hose. You're going to want to drain this first, and then you're going to want to take this seal out. I actually have water in it, so I had to do a tub test just to make sure, but you take that out and ensure that the filter is clear. There's nothing that's obstructing. If you have kids, I've had to take this apart 3 times now because of socks getting stuck in the pan and in the drain hose. So a good remedy for that is you just get those mesh bags, and those mesh bags will prevent socks from going down the drain. So that's for an infant. Last year my son and now my daughter, they just love finding their way into the drain hose and clogging everything up. So stuff doesn't just stay in here. There is what looks like a small area for something to escape down there, but it will somehow suck it down. Actually, we've gotten one of those tile, the key finders stuck in the drain itself, and I don't know how I did it, but I managed to do it. So I pulled it out of there. So now we're going to go to the secondary area. You notice water down the front, okay? That means that there's something wrong with this here, and there's a little spring right here and a little wire. You just pop that out, you make sure it's clean. Once that it is clean, you just want to check where the tub, and I'll show you here, where the tub meets. You can notice I can pull that back. This is a common leak area. So if it is leaking here, you just want to inspect for any tears. If there's tears, you're just gonna replace it. There's a couple keynotes here. There's some areas that you do have to disconnect. There's a screw attaching this tube. There's a screw attaching this tube, and you just got to disconnect them. Not a big deal. They come right out and pop right back in. And that is the second area to check for a leak. The third area that I would check is in here. Sometimes these get clogged up. You want to look for any separation, any cracks in this bay here. And sometimes water can overflow. You want to check your tray, and I'll go get the tray. So, just want to check this, make sure it's not mucked up. And you want to make sure that water can free flow right out the back. I've clogged it up a couple times. I have no idea how, but I've done it. So that's the first area that I'd check. Now, if you notice water in the back, you're just going to want to check that these are tight. If they're leaking, you don't want to over tighten them. Maybe give them some Teflon tape, but they just need to be snug, a little better than hand tight. So those are the most common areas. And then we're probably getting into the area that brings you to this video. Your leak isn't common, just like mine. So I'm going to show you where my leak was. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can pull it out and get access to the back plate. And by the way, before you start doing any of this, unplug it, shut down your water, and make sure that you got buckets, because once you start disconnecting hoses, the drain hose, you're gonna get a lot of water that is really funky. Now, down here, use this light here. Down here, you're gonna see this hose at the bottom. Now this is a way to access it. There's a screw down there. You can actually get in there. You have really tiny hands and you can fix it. But if you're like me and you don't want to deal with constantly fighting it, you just pull it out like it is. Obviously this isn't my washroom. And these are pretty heavy, so you're gonna want 2 people to help you with this. But I never take my own advice, so. Now, so I believe it was leaking right here, and this is the main drain hose. So this is where you're going to want to look, and the way you can identify this leak, you want to make sure that underneath the washing machine itself is dry. You're going to run a load, and you're going to take a piece of cardboard that's as wide as you can go, because you can see there's a lot of areas for that water to escape. If it's on the outskirts, the leak is typically not coming from that hose. It's coming from somewhere else, and it's usually the tub or where the motor mount the gasket, and that's in the back. I'll get to that in a sec. But the primary areas you want to check here is it's usually coming from this area. For some reason or another, that gasket just, the hose just starts to leak, and it just needs a replacement. You can get this part on Amazon, no problem. I had it within a couple of days. So if you can do that with a cardboard test, it's going to be leaking in the middle here, typically in the center. But as you can see, if your tub's cracked, you might get a leak. If the leak is coming up from the front, that little area where you put in your soap or detergent, it'll tend to run down the sides and be in the front. So, and then there's this hose here. This was leaking once because I got a sock stuck in it, and the pump was overworking and somehow was able to push the water out. So I had a leak in this general vicinity here. The final area to check for leaks, the final 2 areas, you want to check right here and right here. Those are where your hose is going. You don't want to over tighten those. Those tend to need to be a little better than hand tight. So you get on there with your hand, and then you can maybe with a wrench, maybe a quarter turn. It doesn't need much. The more you tighten those, they can strip out very easily, and they can leak. Sometimes the more you tighten, the worse you make it. And then you're using Teflon tape, and it just becomes a mess. The final area is the tub. Unfortunately, this is where I would actually call and get someone out, because I mean, it's not hard to do this. You just got to remember all the steps of taking it apart, but it's a lot of work. I don't know if you want to undertake it. You can see the mounts that you gotta remove, the shock mounts, all the wires. But I thought I had a leak here once. It turned out I didn't. You can see that it is separated a bit, but the gasket in there it is holding, and I haven't been able to identify a leak there at all. So that is how to identify leaks on a Samsung washer. A few key points: always make sure that before you start any work, you unplug it. You make sure that you got to shut off your water, and if you don't know what you're doing, if this is really outside the scope of your work expertise, if you're not good at learning and doing things yourself, you really just need to call a local handyman, because next thing you know, a minor leak can turn into you not having a washer at all. So always do these projects at your own risk. Always understand that when you're tackling something like this, you're probably not going to get it fixed same day. You're going to have to identify problems, order the parts, get the parts in, and then hope that those parts are fixed. So there's a lot of pulling it in, pulling it out, and that's why you have to make sure that you're troubleshooting, you've been as thorough as possible, because no one likes lugging these things around in and out of the spaces they go in. No one likes, draining them, disconnecting them. and doing all the work that, like I said, I wasn't planning on doing any of this today. And here I am doing this job. So that being said, these are the common leak points of a Samsung front load washer. I hope I've been helpful and informative. I'm Joel with Dissecting DIY. Good luck with your next DIY project.